What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and in this video I'm checking out the Crispy Donut Community, or CDC, Hanson. And this is, I believe, their first folding knife. I pre-ordered this way back on November 14th of 2022, so over 6 months ago at this point, for $55. That was a pre-order price. I think now they're going to be running for $60. But that delay wasn't super unexpected. They estimated originally late March, early April, or so mid-April. And then there were some delays and it ended up arriving mid-May. So about a month delay, nothing too crazy. And I don't really mind it, honestly, because they did a great job of communicating the delays and making sure everyone knew when to expect them. And in those cases, I don't mind a little bit of a delay. If it were a year delay, maybe I would have minded, but because they communicated it well, no problems there whatsoever from my end. Now, this is the donut version or sprinkle version. If you're not super into sprinkles, they do have a plain black or a plain blue with no sprinkles on it. And so trying to cater to those people that aren't super into sprinkles. But at the same time, a lot of people who bought this knife probably are, because most of their other gear is donut related. Their patches, their pry bars, and any type of swag they have is almost all donut related. But with their knives, they are trying to cater to just the general EDC community, which is nice because not everyone's super into that donut theme. Now I'm going to start with the swag, just because I always appreciate receiving a little bit of swag with anything I buy. This one came with a poker chip with a Hanson logo specific to this knife and the CDC logo on the back. Really cool. If you're into this, they do sell some other poker chips at a relatively reasonable price, so it would be pretty easy to collect them, pretty budget friendly. They're not super big on like markups. There's some limits to the drops, but they're usually pretty readily available for a couple weeks and they don't jack the price up a ton. There's more expensive stuff than this $60 knife, but usually you're getting premium materials in exchange for that jump in price. Now, you also get this holographic sticker, same thing as the backside of that coin, but again, always just appreciate receiving swag with anything I buy because it's just a fun extra add-in. But let's move those out of the way, talk about the knife itself. So pretty mid-sized in terms of an EDC knife. We have a 2.917 inch blade, and that's D2 steel, DLC coated. I believe all three models are DLC coated. That may change in the future models though. 4.071 inches on that handle and 7.075 inches overall. It weighs in at 3¼ ounces, and it doesn't feel super light, it doesn't feel super heavy, kind of right there in the middle, and good weight on it. Feels good in the hand, really comfortable grip. I am able to get 4 fingers, but it's a little bit tight sitting behind that flipper that's doubling as a finger guard. It is a little bit tight in terms of grip, so if you have really large hands, your pinky might hang off there just a bit, but for me, everything fits as I would expect. Pocket clip really disappears. Jimping's in the right spot. My thumb sits nicely on there, really effective jimping. I wouldn't mind of seeing it 1 or 2 more jumps, so it gets a little bit further back there, but my thumb does land on it well, so I don't necessarily need it. Now, you'll see that jimping continue onto the handle, so if you want a little bit more relaxed grip, you can definitely use that jimping, just as effective on the G10 as it is on the blade. Locks you in there nicely. And then there's this one further back, which you don't really feel at all in the grip, so you might be wondering what that's for. And it's for this kind of more reverse tactical grip on it, and that also works really well, but isn't really adding anything the opposite direction. So you don't feel that in your hand when you're in a normal grip. But really good ergos on this. It's a really comfortable knife, well thought out. Now the sprinkles on here, on the donut version, you're getting 2 layers of G10. Both the black and blue are going to be a single layer. You can see the main layer is this pink G10, but there's a thin layer of blue G10 that has all those sprinkle cutouts. Now, you don't really feel the sprinkle cutouts either in the grip. I would imagine they're adding a little bit of traction, a little bit of grippiness to it, but nothing that you're super noticeable. Maybe if your hands were wet, it's adding a little bit in there, but not super noticeable. Otherwise, you'll also see some of these sprinkles run right up to the edge, but they don't create any sharp edges. They did a really good job of contouring everything, really kind of smooth all the way around, not noticeable. Any of the sprinkles aren't really noticeable, so that's a nice thing. You do have T6 hardware, T8 on the pivot, which is only tooled on one side. Nice deep carry pocket clip. I think they did a good job on that. Well placed, also recessed into that handle so that there's nothing catching on your jeans, tearing up your pocket. And it is reversible, and they do send an inlay, which again, always appreciated because don't necessarily love the large gap there when you have a reversible pocket clip. So like when you get an inlay that kind of blocks that off. It is a liner lock, and that liner is jimped as well, really effective. It's on cage ball bearing, so pretty drop shut. It's gonna stop when it hits your nail, but a single shake will get you the rest of the way there. The blade's not really heavy enough for it to be completely drop shut, but like I said, a single shake usually will get you the rest of the way there, and super smooth. Now there's a couple deployment options here. We have a flipper tab, which works really well, as well as a thumb stud, which is equally as effective if you prefer thumb studs. Now, I'm not really able to get behind it enough to do a spidey flick, but I'm sure some people are. Yeah, definitely can't do a spidey flick on there. I'm sure some people might be able to get behind that and spidey flick it, but for me, you're sitting with those two deployment methods. Now, one thing I will note on this jimping on the handle is that every once in a while you might, if you're too far onto that flipper, you might run against that. It's not uncomfortable or painful, but sometimes you will run against that and it's noticeable. But for the most part, if you're sitting on the end of the flipper tab, you're not going to feel that at all. Now, nice hollow grind here on the blade, but there's also another swedge added right here at the tip. I'm not sure how well that's going to pick up, but there definitely is a swedge at the tip to add a little bit of strength there. Not super thick on the blade either. I believe it was 0.0112, maybe? I don't know, almost 0.012 inches thick. I probably wrote it down somewhere. No, I didn't. Okay, so you'll have to look it up. I think they do list it on their website, so you can look it up. My calipers are a little bit out of reach, so I can't measure it right now. But overall, really impressed with this as a first knife. Now, the one thing I didn't mention, first thing I thought when I pulled it out of the box is it feels like a QSP. And I knew, new company, they probably didn't make this themselves. They probably used an OEM. And sure enough, you look on the website, it is OEM'd by QSP. So if you like QSP knives, this feels exactly like what you'd expect from a QSP knife. And I do like QSP knives, so I have no problem with that whatsoever. That does mean it's made in China if you care about that, but at this price point, you kind of already had to guess that it was made in China. Really smooth, all the different deployment methods are super smooth, feels good, and this one is destined for my wife, not because of the color scheme or anything like that. She just ended up really liking it, obviously aesthetically, but just function-wise as well, so she's gonna take this one, but I really appreciate that they're sprinkle theme isn't the standard Desert Warrior. They do have some patches and other gear in that standard Desert Warrior color scheme, and I have a ton of gear that matches it. But this one has just a kind of a different vibe. It's a little bit more subtle in that donut, but still very obviously donut themed. And just kind of a different thing that really differentiates them from that regular Desert Warrior. So I appreciate that a lot, and hoping that they continue to do other gear in this color scheme so that you can build up a kit just like people do with the regular Desert Warrior. I have a pretty full Desert Warrior carry, so at this point would love to kind of venture into this color scheme instead. I know they've done their pry bar. This is the Hanson pry bar, not to be confused with the Hanson knife, but they've done this in that same color finish with the coating. This is a purple anodized one, so it doesn't exactly match, obviously same look to it, but not a perfect match. But I know they've done this one in that coating. I missed that drop, but picked this one up. It is titanium, really cool pry bar from them. If you're not as into that pry bar, they've also done other pry bars with Rogan USA in the past. I think a couple different versions. This is one of them. This has a laser engraved sprinkles instead, so even more subtle, obviously. It did come with this lanyard, really nice knot that I would not have been able to tie, and a glow-in-the-dark donut bead, which is really cool. But big fan of Crispy Donut community. They're doing a lot of stuff. I know at Blade Show they plan on releasing the pre-orders, which you can just do on their website. You don't have to go to Blade Show, but it's coinciding with Blade Show. The pre-orders for 2 new knives, a folder and a fixed blade, if you're interested in those. And then also, if you're interested in picking these up, I believe they'll have some on hand. So right now they're not available on the website. I'd imagine sometime after Blade Show, you'll see them go up for sale for that $60 price point. But really cool knife. I'm excited about it. It was a long wait, but definitely wasn't disappointed. They did a great job, and like I said, did a great job of communicating. There were some QC issues that they made sure to take care of. I'd rather get it a month late and really nicely QC'd than just kind of a janky one that has issues that you're gonna end up sending it back for. And so Really cool. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. If you picked one up, how you're liking it so far. As always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.